fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Absolute overwhelm. I felt like I was losing my mind. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, Like Diamonds, back again, Salt Strong Unchurched. We just got finished up with one of the most just overwhelming times I've experienced in a while. And it was from this hurricane. And I'll kind of paint a picture of all the things that happened and really a really big lesson learned. You know, in these Unchurched series, I'm not doing them just for the sake of doing them. I'm doing a lot of these because I'm trying to become a better person. I'm trying to become a better version of myself. I'm trying to have more fulfillment and less anxiety and less fears. And everything I'm basically talking about are things that I'm going through or have gone through as well, and always constantly trying to improve. And so I had one of these aha moments sitting down at my dock after going through everything that just occurred here over the past week. And I just wanted to share all that with you. And I hope you learned something from it. I'm sure you will, actually. And to kind of put it in perspective, we'd had, I want to say a pretty good run of just not many bad things happening. And, you know, sometimes you get complacent, right? And you just think, oh, it's going to happen forever. And what I mean by that is we hadn't really had anything. We lost our uncle, which was kind of like the last bad thing to COVID. And ever since then, things have been pretty smooth with the business and the house and the kids and my relationship with my wife, everything. And for the most part, you know, kind of just hunky-dory. You know, you always have little small things that cause small stresses, but for the most part, it was just very smooth. And then this Hurricane Ian thing decided to show up. And even that, like, you know, we're in Winter Haven, Florida. That's not usually an area that gets hit and destroyed and tons of damage. It's happened. I mean, Charlie was the last one that caused a ton of damage. And we hadn't had that in a really, really long time. I mean, we're talking 20 years. So we had prepared, but for the most part, we're like kind of the hunky-dory, like, oh, this is going to be okay, and just super positive attitude. And we had Luke and his fiance here, and our two next door neighbors, their house is kind of in shambles already, long story, but they were over here as well. So we had a full house, and we lost electricity. Turns out a tree fell on our power line that's like right on our property that we share with the neighbors. And a tree fell on it early. I'm talking like 3 p.m. on that Wednesday. And so we lost power pretty quickly. But even then, we were positive, like, oh, it's not going to be too bad. It's just one of these random things. And we just assumed everyone else had lost power as well. And, you know, go to bed that night, hardly slept, because if you've been through a hurricane, if you went through this one, I mean, it's crazy loud. And you hear stuff just snapping and cracking and just these crazy winds. It sounds like a train's coming through your house. It's a wild experience. And so the next morning, you know, wake up and I realized this was a legit hurricane. Obviously, we still had our phones, even though we lost power. We still had our phones, and we're kind of watching some of the things that were unfolding. We're like, holy smokes, it's coming right through, even though it's not hitting us on, you know, the ocean side. And many prayers out to everyone in that whole area from, you know, Marco Island and Naples and Fort Myers and Sanibel all the way up in Port Charlotte. And I mean, it impacted a lot of people, but you know, it directly basically came through Polk County as well, where we are. You know, still with hurricane force winds, and now it's slowing down, so it's slower and staying around longer, and obviously just a ton of rain, and we woke up to quite a bit of just devastation on our property. I mean, I couldn't see my grass. We do have a lot of trees, a lot of older trees, a lot of them snapped, some massive you know, branches and limbs and trees down, and just moss and leaves. I mean, it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And unfortunately, I got, you know, some videos of it. The beautiful part is the house was spared. which was almost a miracle. We had trees, within 6 feet of the side of the house, and maybe even 4 feet next to the side of the house. The trees were completely down, but missed the house and spared the house. So very grateful for that, but still just overwhelmed with all the things that I'm seeing there on my property. And I was like, man, this is going to take 12 people, which it took 8, by the way, of 2 full-time days just to clean it all up. And so I had to hire crews just to help me do it. It was just so much stuff, but that was overwhelming. Just like, all right, where do we start? Still don't have power, and that's a whole nother story. And then I get a call from the guy who we just bought this new Salt Strong property from. So if you don't know Salt Strong, we bought a property. It's on the lake, and we just feel like this is our place, and it was all meant to be. And I still do. At the moment, as he called me, I did not. But we're really, really pumped. Supposed to be moving in next year, about to start renovations. And he calls me, and he's like crying. And I'm like, oh boy. And because this was his baby, even though he doesn't own it. Luke and I own it now. But he's crying and like, this is not good. And he's like, man, it's a wreck. It's done. And I'm like, well, Bobby, what happened? And he's like, well, the wind was coming, off the lake. And when you have any type of water and nothing there to block it, you really get hit pretty hard. And our new place did. It lifted up the roof about 6 inches. So imagine you got, and this is a pretty wide roof, like long roof, and it lifted the entire one side of it up completely, like 6 inches, like permanently, like lifted it up, broke wood, broke steel that was holding it in place, the brackets holding a roof in place to the rest of the building. Literally snapped it. And so that's obviously a lot of damage as it is, just having a roof lifted up 6 inches from the foundation of the place. But with all that water and wind just going in from that same direction, the whole place was flooded. I'm talking a couple feet. It was just absolutely flooded. And then that's not the stuff you think about, in Central Florida. That's the stuff that you see, on the Weather Channel and places like Fort Myers that got direct hits. And so we're talking feet of water in our brand new building that we're all excited about to do renovations on. And I know it's just like gut wrenching as he's telling me this, and I'm getting emotional listening to him. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like what in the world? So then our next door neighbors, they have a place on Pine Island, which got destroyed as well. And they really wanted to go see it, which I don't blame them. And then Luke and Lindsay, her family has a place on Little Gasparilla Island, and that's a place that's near and dear to our hearts. And they were really dying to go see that, just to see how they can help out and help anyone who needed some assistance. So they leave us, and then the next door neighbors leave us. And it just so happens their grandfather, who's 96 on hospice, is next door as well. And they're like, hey, do you mind, just kind of watching our generator? It'll just be for the afternoon, and watching our 2 dogs and walking them and all that stuff. And I was already overwhelmed, but it's what you do during a hurricane. You like, absolutely. And I'm glad I did. But they didn't make it back that day or even that night. It was like the very next evening. So basically 2 full days. They left that morning, couldn't make it back that night. Finally found an area where they could even call me to tell me that. And I'm obviously fine with it. It's what you do during a hurricane. You help out people. But so I'm already just absolutely overwhelmed at this point. I still haven't even been able to leave my property because I can't get out. There's trees down all over even the road. So I'm just like, all right, I can't see the property. I know we've got a massive flood there, horrible damage. Can't even get out of my property. There's just so much stuff. And now I'm having my own family and our 6 or 7 pets, right? And then now having to watch my next door neighbor and make sure this guy doesn't die. He's 96 years old on hospice. He can't even leave the house. So I need to make sure that at least the fridge is on and the microwave so they can make him meals and give him his little, pills and the regimen that he's on. And the nurse who's there with them barely speaks any English. So we're trying to have a conversation and it's really, really tough. And so obviously their generator runs out of gas and they didn't have any. They took all their gas with them. because they didn't know how it was going to be getting to Pine Island. And so now I'm trying to, with all this other stuff, I now have to get out and try to get more gas for them for their generator. In the middle of the morning, I went at 6 a.m. on that, I guess this was Friday. Yeah, Friday morning. I went at 6 a.m. The first 3 gas stations I go to all out. Finally get to a Wawa. It's like one spot open. I get it. And then this is crazy. I've pumped 0.6 gallons, so less than 1 gallon. And all of a sudden it starts slowing down. And a lady comes in the speaker and she's like, "Hey, I'm sorry to announce, but we're completely out of gas. We're going to have to wait for the next truck to come in." So I got 0.6 gallons. And I'm just like, I'm almost about to lose it. I was like, you got to be kidding me. We still don't have power at this point. If you've been through that, that's tough, right? We're so reliant on power. And I'm not talking for the internet. I could care less about the internet, but just even to take a warm shower, right? We have water heaters that are, electric, and there's no electricity. You don't have hot water. You're sleeping with no AC. There's no AC, and you're already out there hot and sweaty and doing work and just messy and stuff all over you. And all you want to do is go into a cold or at least a cool house and take a nap or sleep. And I couldn't do any of that stuff. And it was just super, super frustrating, and constantly just doing this whole gas game. I'm making sure we had enough gas to keep our house going and the next door neighbor's house going, which was not easy with the gas shortage. All right, I'm taking a sip of water real quick. So this continues to go on, and just it's slowly but surely clean up. Finally get to the office, meet with the insurance adjuster, and of course there's always these little clauses on the commercial properties, and they're like, yeah, we don't know how much we're going to be able to pay for this, and that's a whole nother story that I'm still kind of frustrated on. And then my daughter, who's Shauna the nature girl, who loves nature and loves finding animals, she found a little squirrel that was thankfully still alive that had fallen out of a tree, and she's trying to revive that, and we finally found some special milk for it, and that was going all around town to do that. And the next morning, this is now Saturday morning, still no power, by the way, so we lost it at Wednesday at 2. We're now at Saturday, and Shauna wakes up, and I'm running the generator to have a little heat lamp on top of this squirrel that we found. So we're trying to now keep all of our pets alive too, and the squirrel dies. So now Shauna's crying, my wife's crying. I'm just like, I'm about to lose it. and that was around the time where still hadn't had any real warm shower, still hadn't slept much at all. I'm like just sweating. Like, we have an older home that the whole back side where the sun hits all day has no windows that open. So even though it was cooler in the state of Florida after that hurricane, we're in an area where it was cool outside, but it was actually hot as Hades in our house. It was like a sauna in there. And so I'm just sweating and mad and just kind of ready to just throw in the towel. You hit that level where nothing seems to work for multiple days in a row, and you're just almost like at a breaking point with no sleep, and people who are asking all kinds of stuff. And I'm still trying to run a business. We still have things going on in our business, and some of our employees were in different states and not impacted, and they're still trying to get answers, and I'm just about to lose it. And so thankfully I did what I usually do when I hit times of absolute just overwhelm and frustration. I go down to the dock. Fortunately, our dock was spared on our lake. And so I went down to the dock just by myself and just sat there and prayed and meditated. I was like, God, what do I do here? I feel like I'm getting nothing done. The property's still a mess, right? It happened Wednesday night. This is now Saturday afternoon. The whole place is still an absolute mess. Just lost the squirrel that, we killed. We tried to save it. Now it's dead. Still running out of gas. Just kind of, if you've ever been there, you kind of just assume, the power's going to turn any minute, and it doesn't. And you keep kind of every morning waking up saying, all right, the power's going to be on, and it doesn't. And now, so we're on day 5 of no power. And I'm feeling like we're just making no progress. Our new office space is still a hot mess. The water's still there, and now every day that's there, we got mold issues, and we can't get anyone out there to come take the drywall out and start doing demolition because everyone else is busy, right? And we don't have any real close connections for that kind of stuff, especially not during a hurricane. And so I just prayed, and I was like, God, what do I do here? Why is this happening? Is it going to get better? And I didn't hear anything for a while. And so I just sat there and I closed my eyes and just kind of listened to some of the birds and slight little wind. And I finally just became a little peaceful. And all of a sudden I got this message, and it wasn't like, I could see God whispering it to me in my ear, but all of a sudden this message just popped in my head. And it was as simple as this: is Joe, I'm not going to give you anything that you can't handle. And I was just like, wow. And I feel like I've probably said that in the podcast before in the past. It was, God's basically not going to give me anything I can't handle. And looking back in my life, there's times like this where you feel overwhelmed, or I felt overwhelmed, and every one of them was a growing experience, made me stronger as a person. And it was, looking back, something that I could handle, even though I felt like I was about to break and just lose it on someone. They were things that were building me up and kind of testing me, if you will. But the overall message here is God's never going to give you anything that you can't handle. He is in control. It is his plan. And even though we all secretly kind of wish, hey, God, why can't you just make everything easy? We know that's not really the key to life and the success and the happiness, right? I mean, looking back at your life, weren't some of kind of the best growing moments not easy, right? I mean, even learning how to ride a bike, it's not easy your first time. You sometimes got to get knee skinned up and fall down a few times. I mean, your first job, it's not easy, right? If you've ever started a business like I have, it's the last thing you would say is it's easy. It's hard, but it's also how you grow and how you learn so much about yourself. And so, I don't know, I just had so much peace with that. And shortly after, it took another 24 hours. It was finally, it took 48 hours. It was finally a Monday. We got our power back, and we went a full, 6 days without any power. Finally came back. And the whole time I just kept saying, all right, God's not going to give me anything that I can't handle here. And finally catching up on some sleep and, trying to just get life somewhat normal. I still have obviously a lot of damage to deal with, but nothing compared to what some people are going through. And so I've been now just praying for these people, and we're trying to find some different ways that we can help people out, directly. There's just so many people who are impacted. We're obviously trying to look at some of our insider members. Sorry, my throat was killing me this morning. Had to take a sip of water. But if any of you are listening who need some help or assistance, let me know, joe@saltstrong.com, or if you know of anyone who does, let us know. We are trying to help and already have helped a few people out in some pretty cool ways. I personally love to give, direct to people. I nothing against big nonprofits, but I love to see our money literally go right into someone's hands who has been directly impacted. So if you guys know of anyone, let me know. Hopefully this was helpful. And just know when you're facing that overwhelm, know that God is not going to put you in any situation or make you go through anything that you can't handle. It will grow you. You might not understand it at the time. I certainly didn't going through all this. But now I realize, even coming out of, even just now, not that far after, I realize why. And I do feel like I'm now a stronger person, and probably needed it after all of that long time of not really having anything bad. It was kind of good to realize how good I had it, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, if you've never been sick before, you don't know what it feels like to be good, right? There are times where it does actually help grow you and empower you. So love you guys. Hit me up, joe@saltstrong.com, if you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, or prayer requests. Love to hear from you. Talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.